Hello, I'm back with another story from the short stories. Now, students, you're going back to school from fours. You are now going to sit for an exam. So, what do you expect from this story, uh, The Sins of the Fathers by Charles Ngoshi from Zimbabwe? I hope you've read this story and you will experience so many vices within this story. We have about 4 vices. One is poor parenting, we have betrayal, we have an aspect of unforgiveness and cruelty. Yeah. So when you focus on poor parenting, what do we see? We see a lot of poor parenting through Mr. Rafa, the father to Rondo. The first experience we have with him is when he meets his son as a young boy. He has stolen mangoes from the neighbor's farm. Now the neighbor has already beaten his son, and he comes back, then thrashes his son. They drag him around until the mother asks whether they want to kill the son. Remember, he was the only son. It's not fair to leave your kids just to do anything they want, but again, over punishing them, it's just the worst thing to do as a parent. Now, when you look at this, therefore, you realize that the result of this is the distancing that we see Rondo having with the father. That he is not free with the father at all, even in adulthood. Remember the time when Mzamane had died with the 2 daughters of Rondo. Now, Rafa comes near the son at the fireplace, and the son imagines that he has seen a ghost, that his father is switching positions. We are not quite sure of what happened here, but I believe it's out of that distancing that happened through poor parenting. The other situation happens when Mr. Rafa roughs up his son until he lacks confidence in himself. As the author tells us, he was prepared to destroy his son because he wanted a duplicate of himself. He always felt like he should have a tough son who takes after him. Yet, when you look at Rondo, Rondo is a kind of humble person. He cannot be a copyright of Mr. Rafa. Now, we are told by the author that Rafa worked in the Ministry of Security, and he seemed to pursue his duties more than take care of his son. Most times he could have to delegate the duties to the mother. This is the worst thing to do as a parent, because most times the children don't just need our money, they need our focus too. Like the father was supposed sometimes to go shopping with the son and do that for him so that he realizes the essence of the father. But this does not happen. Another time is we are told by the author that Mr. Rafa came at one point and found that the son had been gifted a guitar by the uncle. What did Mr. Rafa do? He told him he does not want any guitars in his house, and he broke the guitar, then burnt it. As a parent, he killed the talent of the son, because we don't see his son as a good journalist. Possibly he could be a good singer or somebody else. We also realize that the author tells us Rondo's mother was caught in between the sensitivities of being a husband and being a mother to the son. The nature of the husband made it tough for her, that she did not find it easy to really take care of the son properly. Now, we are also told that Mr. Rafa easily calls the son names. Name calling is not a proper aspect in psychology. Now, we see that he calls the son a traitor, and the time he found the son sitting after school, he called him names and told him that it's time he earned his living. So he addresses his son disrespectfully in a way that he even notices Selena seems not to really also look at him with a lot of respect. He believes it's only the mother who respects him. He even thinks the workmates do not respect him because he has grown up being mishandled or disrespected by the father, as shown on page 32. Now, what are the results of all this? Because when we make poor choices, consequences are always there. The first consequences I've told you is the distancing that happens between Rondo and the father. Now, we have another problem that happens. Rondo develops a stammer. From the time the guitar was broken, and the father told him he does not want any musicians. What happened is that the son developed a stammer. He could not speak without stammering. We also realized that the father is suspicious about the father, that the son is suspicious about the father because he is not so sure of what the father is, and even trusts other people from outside, like Gaston. When Gaston tells him that your father seems to be behind the mysterious death in the streets, he believes it so easily. At some point, he picks the gun that Gaston gives him and is willing to shoot his father. And in the end, the death of Rafa happens as a result of the distancing that happens between the father and the son. Now, the next vice that we see is animosity and cruelty. Cruelty happens as Rafa in the story calls the son an effeminate, spineless one for marrying just from the enemies. Having married Selina, Mundevere, who is an enemy to them, then he considers that they are enemies and sees that for marrying Selina, he is going to bear children who are going to poison the pure blood of Rafa. Now, we have another situation whereby Rafa believes that enemies around him should not survive. And during the birthday of when he's invited, and Mzamane, Selina's father, is there, he decides to organize for his death in the mysterious road accident. We also see that we have the sense in which violence goes overboard and the granddaughters have to die because they have mixed the blood, and therefore he sees there's no need of them to survive. After all, he was not after the granddaughters, he wanted grandsons who could become the heirs of his wealth. We also realize that Gaston believes that with the loaded gun, then Rondo is going to make an end of the father and write his own story about his father. He does not want to write the story on the fellow news anchor. He wants him to write it through action, and he gives him a loaded gun, telling him that it is time he acted. In the end of the story, there is the death of Mzamane, Rondo's two daughters, and Rondo's father. Why has all this happened? It's out of cruelty. It's out of cruelty, either mysteriously or directly, that we see all this. The accidents on the streets also happen as a result of cruelty, because we are told that Rafa had a hand in them. Now, the Muzibiti and the Munywa Shamu people are enemies. One time they fought in a war, and as the mother to Rondo tells us, during the war, so many people were hurt and others were killed, and therefore they became permanent enemies, as shown on page 31. I told you about the third vice of betrayal and treachery. We observe this through Rafa. Rafa thinks that his son betrays him for marrying a daughter of the enemies, the Mundevere people. They fought at some point, and therefore there should be no relationship between his son and these people. Now, out of this marriage, he believes this is betrayal, and that is why he organizes for the death of the granddaughters and as well as the father to Selina. We also see some sort of betrayal when Rafa organizes the death of the grandsons, and yet he understands that Rondo extracts happiness from the marriage to Selina and the daughters. So the accident happens, and after the accident, Rondo is quite hurt. Selina is hurt too, and in the process, they decide to avenge this death by killing Rafa himself. Now, we also see Rafa taking betrayal on Mzamane. When they organized for duck shooting at Miss Quayle's place, it was not just duck shooting after all. You realize that at some point Mzamane was suspicious and asked, is it really duck shooting? Do we shoot while standing or sitting? Now, in the end of the day, it happens that it was a betrayal arrangement in which Rafa wanted that the blame on attacking Miss Quayle goes to Mzamane because he ran or he escaped from the vehicle mysteriously. They did not even understand how he got out of it. We see another sort of betrayal when Rafa himself invites Mzamane in his home, and when people ask him to talk about liberation, all he does is to talk about enemies, and he knows that Of course, the Mundavere people are enemies. So he talks about his own prowess and says that he cannot tolerate the blood of enemies to mix with his own family. Now, this is the betrayal of the highest order. His son is humiliated because every guest is seated. What happens? The author tells us they begin to pick their drinks and children and run to the vehicles. It's because it was a sort of betrayal that was of the highest order. The last sort of vice is egocentrism or selfishness. We realize that when you're selfish, sometimes you can be unforgiving and all that, and this happens in this story. Now, we see Rafa disregards the choice of Rondo. When Rondo makes the choice of Selena, he disregards it. And we are told that when he introduced her in the home, he just asked, "Who are your people?" And when he realized that she came from the very people, he walked away. Even during the wedding, he dissociated with everything. He never even spent a cent. And during the wedding day, he decided to leave and said that there was a mission he was on, the business mission. But in reality, we understand that it cannot happen that you can even miss to ask for permission from work and be there for the wedding of your son. We see another sort of selfishness when Rafa, who cares about himself more than others. He talks about his enemies and the state and his own progress, his pure blood. He does not care about the Mzamane's feelings, even the guests, and it is happening in Rondo's home. This is selfish because it kind of makes him humiliated. He walks even up to the window and comes back. But he continues. He talks until even we are told that we had the frothing, and he shouted. Then, regardless of his son pleading with him that he had done a mistake and he needed to be forgiven, we realize that Rafa was quite selfish. He kept beating and dragging and thrashing the son mercilessly, as shown on page 41. We also see that because of selfishness, he did not care about Selena and the granddaughters. He even had to end up killing them. And during the funeral, do you know what he said to Rondo? He came where Rondo was sitting near the fireplace, and he told him, don't even blame yourself. Don't listen to what people will say. And after all, it was good that it happened early. You should thank God that it happened early. And soon you will have more babies. So what did he expect? More babies with Selena or somebody else? That one was never said by the author, but we see all this in the story. Do we really say that this story did not have virtues? No, it had. If we look at the aspect of love, care, and passion, we had it, especially on the part of Rondo's mother. And if we look at Mzamane, and we can also look partly on Selena and Rondo. Now, we see the unforgiveness, and the impact is that it also streams to the son. Rondo is very unforgiving, by the way, and that's why he thinks he should shoot the father so easily. We see that even Rondo does not have that dignity or self-confidence. He thinks that even Selena does not respect him, So within this story, we have a lot of vices, and if you have a question, you are free to ask. I'll give you the answer. We'll share so many views about this story. Bye-bye for now.